Hello, hello, welcome to Season 5 of House Play D&D, the explainer podcast with one experienced dungeon master and one failed scriptwriter to discuss D&D topics. My name is Kinsey and my illustrious guest this week is Dan of D&D Made Easy. Hello, Dan.
Hi.
How about you laughed at me because I struggle to say the thing I say every bloody week and I don't I just can't get better at it. I'm not good with words and I'm not good at memorizing things. What can I do? What can I do? Um, right, we'll get into it. This season we are doing things slightly different. Our guests have selected an enemy from a list that I've supplied, and they're going to educate us as to why we should use these creatures. And of course, I will interrogate. Dan, what is this week's creature?
This week's creature is the hag.
Let's get to it. Okay, so today's episode is on Hags. Hags, the cross between the evil witch and Snow White and the addict you promised you'd buy a pack of cigs on your way into the co-op. Dan, I've ventured into the far north of Scotland looking for a cure to my gout. Should it smell when I scratch it? Should it taste like fish when I pick at it? What am I doing?
I think we want it to be as weird as possible. So
Yeah.
I think you can go a bit further than that.
Oh yeah, cook it.
We want to go really otherworldly. So I don't know. Rather than scratching when you pick at it, it's going to turn your hands purple with an
Oh,
eldritch-like glow.
oh yeah, all right.
We're
I'm
in
into
hag territory.
You've like unhinged the unhinged question, the first on the podcast to do so. Right. Well, with that then, and it is happening. I can't show the camera down, but my foot is very septic. Okay, to the real questions. Why did you pick hags?
It's They are one of my favorite foes because they're really versatile
Mm,
and yeah, you can really do a lot with them. And it kind of upends some of the established paradigms,
mm.
which I guess we'll get to later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so fun.
Yeah, we've got a recurring hag in my campaign where when I brought her in, I thought this is going to be ideally like the kind of spellcaster enemy they've not come up against yet so far in the campaign, and they genuinely in character mocked her, tied her down, used spells so that she could not speak. And then literally left her in the forest rather than attacking her. And usually they fight everything. And I was like, I don't know what it is, but they've just decided that this is their nemesis and they don't actually give a shit about fighting it. And then that has become a thing where this character now has a name and is a bit of a bounty hunter looking for them. And at every point, without even talking about it, they'll like non-spokenly agree to kind of like stop her from fighting them, but never like deal with her. She's a bit like a Team Rocket, like a Team Rocket character. So it's yeah, Hags are great, and I think there's a lot of charisma with Hags as well. You can have a lot of fun, a lot of
Mhm.
personality. What kind of stats does a Hag have?
Well, there are a few different types of hags. So if you look at least the 2014-ish, I'm not sure if it was 2014, 2015, Monster Manual, there's a green hag, a water hag,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think a sea hag maybe, and there are a range of different challenge ratings, CRs. So I think the green hag is around a CR of 5 or something like that. But hags can form covens.
Mm.
And when a hag is in a coven, it gets access to more powerful spells and it grows in power. And kind of as with everything, you can always homebrew your own creatures. If you really like a creature, you can just make it more powerful and make like, an elder hag.
Mm. Yeah, I think that, like you said, with that versatility, is it's not like a bit like anything that you can homebrew it, but also there are options there straight out of off the pages where this isn't something that you encounter at level 3 and you never come back to it. It's something that in itself, that same enemy, it can update based on having a
Mm.
coven, the more you want to bring it in with a bit of homebrew, or the versatility of like where you'll find one and its kind of like domain. Like you said, there's a water
Yeah.
hag, there's a green hag. So yeah, there's a lot of good things you can do with hags. how does a DM use a hag in their game?
Yeah, so here's one of the things, and it goes back to that other question is the other thing is hags, you mentioned they can be very charismatic. So they're tricksters, right?
Mm,
They're natural born tricksters, they're fey creatures, and they are generally pure evil tricksters, but they tend to amass a following of evil creatures.
mm,
And you can do all sorts of different things with that. So in a campaign I ran, it was blights.
yeah.
So I had a hag that was corrupting this forest and then had a load of blights at its command. But you can do anything. You can do goblins. So, a hag will typically have an army, and they are very versatile.
Mm.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, it was like how does a DM use a hag in their games?
Yeah,
I think you touched
yeah.
upon it, and then even with that, there's ways of doing it. It can be a group setting, it can be a singular one versus the
Mhm.
party, you know?
Yeah. So because they are very tricky creatures, that will usually play a big part in how a scenario or an arc with an ag with a hag runs.
Mm,
So one very successful way that I implemented a hag into a game was the players had no idea what was happening. This forest was corrupted, and when they came to the forest, they found a druid, and this druid said, "Oh, this forest is corrupted. What has happened? I think that I found the source of the corruption." And then they led the party to where this source of the corruption was,
mm,
which was an underground spider den. Of course, it wasn't the druid that they were following. It was a hag, and
nice.
uh, green hags in particular. They have a wonderful selection of abilities. They can go invisible at will. They
Mm,
can change their appearance at will, and they can mimic any voice at will.
mm,
And they can also cast minor illusion at will. So you have this creature that just perfectly mimics anything, takes the party into very precarious situations just for the evil glee of it.
mm,
In
mm.
this scenario, the hag had killed the druid, which was the protector of the forest,
Yeah.
um, and then corrupted the forest and just thought, well, this will be fun. There's some fledgling adventurers. I can have a bit of fun with them and get them killed by these spiders. Uh,
That's really cool. And that I mean the next question was, can you give me an example of when you used or encountered ones? That summarizes that really well. But like
yeah.
you said there of like killing the druid, I mean obviously that's immediately killing anything you go right, then they definitely are pure evil. But then not just a typical scenario might be that there's just combat between the adventurers and the hag. A good DM is going to go, well, let's see what hags usually do. What are their personality traits? What are the abilities they have? It's not just for
Mm.
combat, right? How do I use these outside of that? And you've gone to that length of going, well, they're going to be a bit of an NPC who gives them a bit of a quest here, and the quest is false. And then you get those real hag traits come out of, well, now I've led you here and you're surrounded by whatever, that
Mhm.
then that's when you get that combat. It doesn't always have to be, well, it's tit for tat, and that's a really good way. At least for me, I would have absolutely loved that. The betrayal would have been exactly what I was looking for from a hag encounter. So I think listeners, if they've not done that before, then it's a great way of thinking, but also making you aware that DMs can do that. And what you see isn't exactly to be believed. There's a
Mhm.
lot of creatures like that, which is great. Um, okay, well, last question already with this. What's your least favorite enemy in D&D?
Ooh,
Yeah, tough
what's
one.
my
This is the
least
one.
favorite enemy?
This is difficult, and I think it does change like on the weekly sometimes.
Okay. Least favorite in terms of if I'm a player or if I'm a DM.
Whatever you want. In fact, do you know what? Because you're definitely doing an episode, a future episode on this series. How about you give us as a DM?
Okay. Least favorite as a DM. Maybe something like a beholder.
Mm,
Any enemy that has basically save or die kind of
yeah.
effects. Because very powerful but very scary, which can be a lot, it can be very fun
Mm,
for players. But the thing is with any enemy that's really, really powerful, if you use them and your players aren't established players that already know about the monster and have kind
yeah.
of meta knowledge and haven't prepared,
Mm,
then there's a very good chance that you're almost forced into a total party kill just by playing the monsters as as they would be.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
can always change the rules of the game, right? But I don't like to do that as a player, and I don't like to do it much as a GM either.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's fair. I actually used Beholder as one of my examples before, but I hadn't thought about it in the way that you have just said there. Like, it makes complete sense that you're quite likely to bring a Beholder in because the party is at the right level to be dealing with it. But it's almost one of those creatures where you almost need to, and as you said about the meta side of things, introduce in character in like the world they're in that some people have a couple of tips, some NPCs have a couple of things they've heard about the beholder to just give a bit of insight to players how you should go about this because when it
Yeah,
does come down to like just saves all the time, it's you do have to think tactically. You don't want to be in a situation where there are saves. It's not I hit then you hit my AC, you've missed the AC. It's you
yeah,
literally it's all on luck on that roll. And you're not building a character around a beholder encounter. You're building a character and you happen to stumble across a beholder encounter. My version of that was for me, I haven't played where there's a beholder in the game, and I haven't DM'd a beholder, but I haven't played with a beholder in the game where I felt like it was utilized correctly. Same with
mm,
dragons that they've got wings but you're not using them, or with the beholder, it's got all of these abilities, all of these rays, but people don't make the most of it. I think they get stuck in the idea of if I put this on the board, people are very excited because it's a beholder. But they've not thought about why it's on the board and how do
yeah,
those players, once the excitement's done, how do they actually make the encounter exciting? So
yeah.
yeah, it's a mixed bag, but you're not the first person to say it, and also nor am I in this season. It's a tough one.
Well, one of the other things as well is that it has an anti-magic area of effect where just 90-degree cone in front of it, you can't
Yeah,
cast magic.
yeah,
So you go up against a party of spellcasters and they're immediately useless,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Unless they know about that beforehand and they spread out around the beholder. And of course, the
yeah.
beholder, you can't I don't think you can slow it down. You can't make it prone. It can float, so it will just go around and reorient itself wherever it wants. They're terrifying enemies.
Yeah, I think it really helps to almost set up the map to have tactical moments for the
Mm,
team to even if you go right, look, there's clearly this like second entry into this cavern to fight this thing, and you go, well, that's a bit of a cop out because then they'll just do that definitely. But then obviously the monster's got to be smart, and beholders are smart. So then that monster, as you rightly said, needs to be moving around rather than just sitting there and being hit from all angles. It needs to be as tactical as them, regardless of the situation you've made. That the location's good to give players another puzzle to solve, but you don't want to force feed them it so it was boring at the same time. Well, do you know what? I know we just talked about beholders for that bit there, but like the hags, I've used them in my session as I said earlier briefly, but I've not encountered one, and I think that they are great creatures. You have convinced me. I think they can be really versatile and really fun. And I think it's always better when there's something that you actually almost want to hear out before you attack it. And if
mhm.
that means I'm being misled or we turn on the party or whatever, that's good fun. You know.
Here's another tip with a hag. I use this and it was absolutely terrifying. So further on in that arc,
Mm,
the party actually fought the hag in its lair, which was the cabin that
yeah.
the druid had. And one of the players was in the basement fighting the hag, and the others were upstairs. That player, okay, so with the combination of being invisible, looking like other creatures, and mimicking other creatures, the hag just made itself look like one of the players, one of the other party members, was invisible and then just tapped, kind of horror effect,
Yeah.
tapped on the shoulder of this guy. He turns around, gets a claw to the face. Then the hag goes upstairs and disguised as the party member downstairs and says,
Yeah.
"Come on, we need to get out of here." The
Incredible.
player downstairs had started setting the cabin on fire.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it was
So you
pure
can,
chaos.
yeah, play tricks, just
Yeah.
every way that you can do that is so fun.
Was that in person, that session as well?
Yeah.
So that I mean, it works online as well, but I love this in the sessions that I run is when you can give information to a player and the other players are there, but their character does not know it, so they can't do
Hmm.
anything about it. Like attacking the guy downstairs, but going up to the player upstairs and be like, "Yeah, we need to get out," and they know, but unless they're gonna be meta about it, they've got to go with it or at least roll something. For instance. And I think that's almost like the best part of D&D is like you having to lie to yourself in order to play the character right, and Hags,
Yeah.
that example is like a fantastic example where you can really like shift the party to be like, fuck, this is actually really tense. Even though it's just a kind of a swoop and a fire happening, it can be pure chaos, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like,
Well, yeah. Thank you very much for that. Would you like to quickly give an insight to the listeners as to who you are and what you do?
yep. I'm Dan. I go by the moniker D&D Made Easy, and I make all sorts of resources to help make D&D easy for people, easy to get into. So, kind of rules, explanation videos, tutorials, that kind of thing on YouTube. I'm across all the social media platforms. I also make products that make it easy to play, a specific character or make
Mm.
your games more immersive.
Yeah, amazing. We've obviously you've been on the podcast before for the last season, and as always, we'll have links to everything that Dan does in the episode bio. But feel free to check out stuff. Well, I think you're also in our link tree on Instagram, so you cannot avoid what Dan is doing, and it's all fantastic, which is what's important. Okay, so today's adventure has sadly come to a close. We're back in next week with the topic: Do you check under the bed for monsters, or are you unimaginative? And as always, thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to join in the D&D action, then please follow us on Instagram at HowToPlayD&D or check out the link in our bio to join our Discord server. I've been Connor Kinsey.
And I've been Dan of D&D
Good day.
Mean Easy.
Yeah, good day.